Hi, I'm Sharon Reich Garson in New Jersey. It's Sunday, December 14th. Today, two killed in a shooting at Brown University. Two U.S. soldiers and an interpreter are killed in a suspected Islamic State attack in Syria. Angry Indian soccer fans throw objects after Lionel Messi's brief stadium stop. And Prada turns a backlash over cultural appropriation into a collaboration with Indian artisans. This is Reuters World News, bringing you everything you need to know from the front lines in 10 minutes, 7 days a week. First is some breaking news in Australia, where at least 12 people have been killed in a shooting at Sydney's Bondi Beach. Gunmen opened fire during a Jewish holiday event on the first day of Hanukkah. New South Wales police say they know two gunmen were involved and are in custody. They're investigating whether there was a third. At least 29 people were also injured, including two police officers, in what officials are calling a terrorism incident. This story is still developing, and you can check Reuters.com for updates. There's a link to our live page in the pod description. Two students have been killed and 9 people wounded in a shooting at Brown University in Rhode Island. The gunman escaped after targeting students in a classroom in an engineering building, where the outer doors had been unlocked while exams were taking place. Zoe Weissman is a second-year student at Brown and spoke to Reuters with the university still under lockdown.
I'm shocked, but I'm not surprised. And I think that that's probably a sentiment that a lot of students also have here. It's like, obviously, you never expect it to actually happen, but it's not surprising because we see how often it happens.
So we mourn the loss of 3 great patriots in Syria. You know how it happened. It was an ambush, terrible.
U.S. President Donald Trump speaking at the White House before getting on Marine One, vowing to retaliate. The 2 Army soldiers and a civilian interpreter were killed by a suspected Islamic State attacker who worked for the Syrian security forces, according to local officials. It happened in the central town of Palmyra. 3 U.S. soldiers were also wounded. The Israeli military says it's killed senior Hamas commander Raed Said in Gaza City. He was one of the architects of the October 7th attacks. It's the highest profile assassination of a senior Hamas figure since the ceasefire deal came into effect in October. Emotional scenes in Ukraine after leading Belarusian opposition figure Maria Kolesnikova was released from prison. She'd been detained for 5 years after leading mass protests against President Alexander Lukashenko. 122 other prisoners were freed after the U.S. agreed to lift sanctions on Belarus. Also released was Nobel Peace Prize winner Ales Bialiatski. The prisoner release is by far the biggest since Trump's administration opened talks this year. Lionel Messi's tour of India has kicked off with chaotic scenes in Kolkata after the soccer legend made only a brief appearance at a ticketed event. Angry fans threw objects, ripped up seats, and invaded the pitch at the Salt Lake Stadium. The event's main organizer has been detained. That's Bukavu motorcycle driver Patrick Siruza saying as long as Democratic Republic of Congo is discussing peace with Rwanda, they'll continue to suffer. The U.S. is now accusing Rwanda of fueling instability as M23 rebels, backed by Kigali, push deeper into eastern Congo, just a week after leadership met President Trump in Washington to reaffirm a peace deal. Now Burundi, Congo's southern neighbor, with troops already in the region, is warning restraint has its limits, raising fear this could spiral into a wider regional war. Central and West Africa Bureau Chief Robbie Corey Boulay has the latest.
The big question is whether M23 will immediately try to push on or if they will focus on consolidating control in Uvira. So if M23 controls this, then they'll have a much easier time expanding their fight elsewhere into Congo if they choose to do so, significantly undermining, prospects for peace.
Meanwhile, U.S. escalations in the Caribbean could push an already struggling country over the edge. Cuba's long depended on Venezuelan oil to power its economy and keep the lights on. But the island has already endured widespread blackouts, and now it's even more exposed. Latin American news editor Christian Plum says seized oil tankers could trigger severe shortages.
The U.S. actions, it's really putting in place almost like a virtual blockade on Venezuela. Their oil mainly goes to China, but China has many other alternative sources. Cuba doesn't have a lot of alternative sources, again, because of that embargo. That embargo includes fuel. This latest vessel seizure by the U.S. could potentially scale back those imports from Venezuela, but people have been calling a tipping point for Cuba for years, honestly, guessing that this was going to be, the final straw for the government there, but they've been successful in hanging on, frankly. So I'm not sure that anyone can make that bet at this point, but that there will be more pain for the people on the island, I think is hard to dispute.
European nations are rethinking security. As Russian aggression looms, many are boosting their defenses. In France, President Emmanuel Macron says a new voluntary military service for young people will launch in 2026. The goal? To build France's pool of reservists to 100,000 by 2030.
Pour vivre ici, ils ont fait la guerre. Il faut les rendre fiers.
17-year-old student Medeo Bedala says his ancestors fought for their country, and he'll do the same. Paris-based reporter Elizabeth Pinault tells us that sentiment is echoed by many young people in France.
French people, and especially the youngsters, are really aware that the threat is high now with the war in Ukraine. 10 countries in Europe, like Austria, Cyprus, Sweden, have compulsory military service still. And some others, like Belgium or Germany, are considering to get people and youngsters especially more involved in some kind of voluntary service. French people and in general European people are fully aware that Europe has to do more for its defense, especially since American President Donald Trump is saying almost every day that Europe must now take care of its own defense. And instead of counting on the US all the time.
Prada's turning a cultural controversy into an opportunity. The Italian luxury brand faced backlash for showcasing sandals inspired by traditional Indian footwear without giving credit. Now Prada's teaming up with Indian artisans for a limited edition collection, and buyers should be ready to pay up. Each pair will cost $930. Our Mumbai correspondent Duwani Pandya has more.
So these artisans, mainly from the Maharashtra and Karnataka state of India, they come from very marginalized communities and impoverished backgrounds, and they are hoping that these collaboration will raise their income. It will also attract like younger generations to this trade and preserve the heritage, which is threatened by cheap imitations and declining demand. They are also hoping that they will get to learn a lot in terms of Italian manufacturing techniques, because Prada and these Indian organization agreement also involves 3 years of skill exchange program, where some of these craftsmen will be able to go to Italy and learn the techniques and designs from Prada Academy and then bring that experience back. And they are hoping that they can turn that experience into opportunities for entrepreneurship.
And for today's recommended listen, check out our latest episode of On Assignment. Our East Africa Bureau Chief Amu Kanampili takes us to a remote part of Kenya, where she journeyed to understand how cuts to USAID have left children suffering from severe malnutrition without crucial nutritional aid. There's a link to that episode in today's show notes. For more on any of the stories from today, check out Reuters.com or the Reuters app. Don't forget to follow us on your favorite podcast player. If you're listening on a smart speaker, just ask for the latest news from Reuters, 7 days a week. We'll be back tomorrow with our daily headline show.